my self-esteem. That would be like the state of the Commonwealth if everybody clapped when I walked in. Welcome to your state capital. I see hundreds of healthcare heroes here. Thank you so much for your service. We love each and every one of you. I believe that healthcare is a basic human right, and that we have to have the policies in place to where you can provide your services to every single Kentuckian, making sure everybody has that opportunity to be healthy from childhood through adulthood, knowing that it's so important for our workforce or for quality of life, that our amount of time on earth is limited. And the experiences that we have, the love that we get to share with other people is so impacted by our health, and you all work so hard on it. I think about how we always said that healthcare was a calling. But let me tell you, during the pandemic, you all absolutely proved that that was true. I mean, this is the war of our lifetime. I mean, we lost more people during the pandemic than we did in World War I, World War II, and Vietnam put together. And we asked so many of you all, even in the beginning when it was the scariest, we didn't have the information on it, we didn't have the necessary PPE to not only put your own potential health and life on the line, but the idea that you could take it home to family afterwards. But you still got up every single day. In the scariest moments of my lifetime, some of you walking into a COVID wing or other areas, and listen, because of you all, tens of thousands of Kentuckians are alive today that wouldn't otherwise be. And we all remember those videos of people when they were getting out of the hospital, don't we? Especially early on, how we were celebrating it. Do you realize that the first ray of hope that we got in that pandemic was your work saving more people than anyone had ever estimated? That your outcomes were better, even in the toughest times, than anyone had theorized. And that's not because the virus was any less dangerous. It's because you all were that much better, because you worked that hard, because the quality of what you do is so high, because you cared so much about every single person. You were willing to put in the time that it took to get them out and back to their loved ones. I look also at healthcare as one of our biggest drivers in economic development, one of the fastest growing parts of our Kentucky economy. And just to see how we are expanding healthcare in so many different areas. I mean, we're building the first hospital in West Louisville in 150 years. How about that? Facility in Bullitt County, and what that's going to mean to so many people who aren't going to have to go on the really long ambulance ride and to be able to get those services right away. We now have 2 pediatric autism centers in Eastern Kentucky so that parents don't have to drive 2+ hours to get the help that they need. St. Clair is creating a clinic in Morgan County where they're going to have health care right there each and every day. We're seeing those incredible steps so that, again, you don't have to drive 2 hours or take 2 buses to see the healthcare providers that you need. And there is no question that the empowerment of nurses and the provision of healthcare services has helped us expand access to some of the toughest places to reach. Your ability, and thankfully the law opening up for you to do so much more, has allowed those services to go places that previously didn't see it, to get better outcomes. And let me tell you that while you might think that your services are needed most in a pandemic, and your services were really needed in a pandemic, I actually believe it's times of opportunity that maybe we can get the most good done when we look moving forward. I mean, Kentucky's economy is on fire in a way I have never seen in my lifetime. I mean, we're home to the biggest investment in Ford and Amazon. They both picked us. If it's Amazon, is anybody from Northern Kentucky? You know that Amazon facility at the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky Airport is on our side of the river. By the way, I've already met somebody from Madisonville. The person who runs that facility is from Dawson Springs, where my family is from. There are more people working in that facility maybe than in Dawson, but we look at all of that. We look at all the announcements that are just pouring in. We look at jobs coming everywhere. As many jobs in rural Kentucky right now as we're seeing in urban Kentucky that we're creating. Number 2 in per capita economic development in the country. Number 3 in the creation of rural jobs. In this post-COVID economy, people are picking us. Companies that claim they didn't even have our number are now calling us first. But to meet those needs, we have to have a workforce that's educated enough, trained enough, and yes, healthy enough to fill those jobs. And so now, everybody we get in preventative screenings, everybody we get regularly coming in to get checkups, everybody we can move off disability or prevent from ever falling on disability, everyone that we can make sure their diabetes treatment is regular and up to date, every person that we can get a little healthier right now, there's a great job, not a good job, a great job out there for them. So think in a time like this what we can do to combat generational poverty, what we can do to restore hope where hope's been lost. And you all are such a critical part of creating that better Kentucky. Everybody you help get back on their feet is going to have a better chance to stay on their feet than at any time we've ever seen. And I don't know about you, but I'm ready for Kentucky to be a national economic leader, to never be a flyover state ever again, to nobody ever be able to look down their nose at us ever again, and nobody to ever be able to make fun of our accents ever again. And in the challenge to provide these services, as you know, we've worked directly with you, trying to open up more opportunities, more slots, working with our associations, making changes where we need on that board, working with our General Assembly. But the voices that have driven these changes are y'all. And because of that, we're excited that you're here today. And we know that you're up here advocating for your profession, for the assistance that you need. And there are things in this budget session that you need to be aware of because they can have an impact, although maybe not directly, certainly on the health of our people. You know, on the current budget that's just left the House, is going to go over to the Senate, there's some Medicaid cuts. And we know what that does. There's Medicaid cuts just to the overall program that we've got to get restored. And then there's lack of funding in what we tried to do, especially for our nursing homes. And the need there to be able to pay higher wages, to have higher reimbursements there. There are parts of the health of our people that directly relate to their education. I mean, this has got to be the session where we get raises for our public school educators if we want to continue this economic development role. I mean, number 2 in per capita economic development, but 44th in starting teacher pay, 40th in average teacher pay. When Tennessee just gave the biggest raises in their history, and they're bragging about being top 10, that's our competition. This is our chance for universal pre-K for every 4-year-old in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Think about what that would mean. That is 34,000 additional kids that would get pre-K services every year. It would free up about 4,000 federally funded child care slots that 4-year-olds are currently in, that younger kids could fill in. It would be at least an impact on the child care side in every single county, even where we have child care deserts. And if you paid child care for a 4-year-old, you know what that would save you in any given year. And again, Cincinnati, if you're from Northern Kentucky, is about to do this. And to remain competitive, we got to make sure we're doing it here too. I mean, the argument, even just on the education side, where half of our kids show up and aren't kindergarten ready right now. Half. That is a failing grade, and we know we have to do better. But I keep thinking, if we can get our kids in at 4, if we can pay everyone in that school system, including our nurses working in that school system, If we can pay them that better wage, I proposed an 11% across the board raise. Think about in some of our communities, maybe yours, what that would do to your local economy, how that would help your small businesses. This is the largest employer in a lot of our counties, actually 26 counties if you just take teachers, before every other educator, because everyone in that building deserves a raise. Everyone in there is an educator. But just teachers make up over 10% of total wages in 26 counties. When we look at poverty in the United States, in some of our counties in Kentucky, part of it's we're not paying our public school educators across the board enough to lift certain counties and areas out of poverty. So you look at what so many of you all are doing in the area of substance abuse treatment. By the way, Recovery Advocacy Day was yesterday. We had about 400 people in the rotunda. Yeah. Think about what a change that's been. Think about how much we've reduced the stigma. 8 years ago, we would have had 3 people there. But that many people proudly saying they're in recovery and reaching their hand out to help someone else. Over the past 4 years, we've increased our treatment beds by 50%, and we just got in the final piece of evidence that we needed. We can now say that Kentucky is number 1 per capita. We're number 1 in the country per capita in our number of treatment beds for our Kentucky citizens. I think that's pretty special. So we're really excited that you're here. You are an important voice. Our healthcare heroes, by the way, were also grand marshals for the inaugural parade. You more than earned that spot. To anybody who came and marched with us, it was a lot warmer than 4 years before that. But listen, this is your state capital. You are a driving force in this Commonwealth, in our economy, and in the type of healthcare that we need to provide to all of our people. So really excited you're here today. Really hopeful that as your voice is raised on issues directly related and indirectly related to your profession, that we can do a lot of good. Now, you all are all sitting in our representatives' seats, and so I'm going to call for about 4 votes for a couple of things we need passed. And I'm pretty sure we'd all vote the same way. But let me just say this. The current budget process shows that your voice works. We put out a proposed budget that we think it's called our Forward Together budget, would move every county, every city forward, one that truly lifts our people up. The very first version from the House was really troubling. And after the 3 biggest budget surpluses in our history, which we were pleased to deliver, which give us the dollars to invest, the initial one had the largest executive branch cut since 2008. That's pretty tough to swallow when you've just delivered the 3 best years ever, and they say, okay, we're just going to cut a whole bunch of your employees. And by the way, nurses at our nursing homes, our veterans nursing homes, were one of the hardest hit. But people raised their voices, and in the first substitute, the one that got passed, we corrected almost all of those cuts. So the process is working better than it has in a while. Now, it's over to the Senate, and there'll be committee hearings. We just met with leadership downstairs in a really good, productive meeting. And then there'll be a conference committee in the very end between the Senate's version and the House's version. And people are listening. And they'll listen more to you than they will to me. Now I'm looking at the nameplates. They'll listen more to you than they will to me. But they are listening, and I want to give a lot of credit for that. It improved vastly, that budget, from the very first one to the one that passed. And I'm convinced that it's people in their communities that we're hired to represent. Now, I think that if we truly want to build the Commonwealth that everyone deserves, a big part of it's pushing the noise out and not seeing ourselves as part of Team Democrat or Team Republican or Team Red or Team Blue, but ultimately serving the people that elected us and trying to do the very best for them to move their lives forward. Not just close by saying the American people don't wake up every morning thinking about what party they're in or who's going to be the next president, even though if you turn on cable news, that is all you hear. What they think about is their job, and do they make enough to support their family? They think about their next medical appointment, when it is, how long it'll take to get there. They think about the safety of the roads and the bridges in their community. They think about their public schools, and they think about public safety where they live. And none of those are partisan whatsoever. And if we spend every day trying to gain ground in those, leave all the rest behind. Don't get into whatever the clamor of the day that you're supposed to be outraged about today to try to push one vote here or one vote there. If we can say no to the politics of anger and division and hate and just embrace that golden rule and each other as neighbors, and just focusing on the things that we all agree with and that are most important to us when we wake up each morning, we can continue this amazing progress we're seeing in Kentucky. So thank you very much. I'm happy to take a few questions if you got them. This is your chance to interrogate the governor.
There's somebody. I'll bring you the microphone.
I'm a recovering lawyer, which means I'll give you an actual answer.
So I made the switch from political science in DC into nursing here in Kentucky. Love the switch. But I do have to ask.
From this political science major, good switch.
Science to science, same thing, right? So obviously you're a great leader. I haven't ever talked to anybody that doesn't like the way you've led our state. Do you ever see yourself stepping into the federal government? Because I think we need you, and I think a lot of people here would agree with that.
Well, thank you. Did I say I was going to take questions? Thank you. I love this state. It's where I'm from. I got to lead in a time of great difficulty through natural disasters and others, and in this big chaotic world, got to feel like I could wake up every day and try to do my best, try to have your back, make sure that people were yelling at me and not yelling at you, or more people were yelling at me than yelling at you. And I'm really excited to serve these next 4 years as governor. A lot of people in this get caught up on what's next. There doesn't have to be a next. You know, the number one thing I want to make sure is these 8 years that I get to serve, that we get to make the most progress possible. And I can tell you, being governor, you're not one of 50, you're one of one. I mean, the things you get to do every day, the progress you get to make, whether or not we have support from other branches of government sometime, are just really exciting. And I'm practical. I'm less ideological than just wanting to get to a solution, and by the way, really wanting it to work. One of the challenges that we could solve a lot of the infighting is if we'd say, okay, who has a plan? And the first thing we're going to ask before who gets a win or who gets a loss is, will it work? But you know, if we're excited about these next couple of years. If an opportunity arose, I'd want to make sure I can make a difference. I'm not sure I want to be one of 100 or one of 400 and something, but if there was, if I truly felt like we could stop this country from doing this, you know, we have National Guard at Tower 22 in Jordan. We have a lot of National Guard there. And I knew that when it happened. And immediately after that happened, some people, instead of saying we're thinking about those that are lost and our troops that are there, just immediately started a political attack. Right after our country was actually attacked. Right? I mean, there are enough enemies out there that want to harm us that we shouldn't be trying to harm each other. If I thought that there was a way to course correct there and to try to bring people back together, that's something I'd look at.
Thank you, Governor.
That was my answer, non-answer.
Who's next?
Good morning. I only asked this question because I wonder this. How hard is it to be the son of a former governor and not be compared to your dad as far as accomplishments and what you can do? Because I voted for your dad and I voted for you. And I also see the difference myself, but also I want to see the difference as a nurse. So.
Well, thank you for that. I love my dad. I do. And I had thought for a long time, because you know, he ran for governor in 1987 and lost, and I still remember that night. I'm bawling, I'm 10. And he's sitting there telling me it's going to be okay. I mean, this was always his dream. I wouldn't say I grew up to it, but this was his dream. And it totally collapsed that night. And I still remember sitting there on the bed in the hotel room and him telling me it was going to be okay. And so in 2007, at a time when he should have never had a shot, that happening, I mean, helping a dad achieve a dream he thought was dead. And so I will welcome any comparison with that man that anybody would ever make. And I keep telling him that he is the second best Governor Beshear has ever seen. Harder growing up, but I wouldn't trade it because now I understand a little bit about my kids. And they're 13 and 14, and by the way, they're doing a lot better with it than I am. And if anybody here is from Frankfort, the city of Frankfort has wrapped its arms around them, treats them fairly normal, roots for them in the sports they play, needs them in the sports they play. But it's been a real special town that has made what could be a very difficult environment for them a real positive.
Do you still have time? Or?
Sure, I can take one. You got one more?
I have a follow-up to Ella's question.
Ooh.
Would Winnie like to run for federal office?
Oh, well. So Winnie is the most popular Beshear by far. I mean, in our campaign, we put out different swag, and the only one that sold out repeatedly was Winnie's bandana. And we even made a collar that sold out with her face on it, and the one that didn't have it didn't sell out. And so I'm pretty sure she would win. We keep getting asked this question, why does Winnie not have her own Facebook page? And the answer is, no one would look at ours. She was just downstairs in the rotunda. We're, as long as she doesn't try to bite anybody, she's going to keep coming over. But that dog is sweet. She is goofy. Probably not terribly smart, but you can't have it all.
All right, is there anybody else?
Thank you for your time, Governor.
Of course.
There's a lot of students in the room today,
Yes.
most up here. We have some students from and we're all coming to this field after the pandemic.
Yeah.
So we've got our calling during the pandemic, many of us. So I'd like to get your perspective on what are the next 10 years of health priorities and health policy priorities for the Commonwealth?
Well, to all of our students, thank you. We need you. Like we talked about, it's special to serve in a pandemic, but it's really special to also serve at a time where you know that there can be an impact 10, 20, 30 years that can change the trajectory of a state. What we'd ask is that you serve in the same way, with the same empathy and love as opposed to judgment. To serve, knowing that every day you come in, you might see something a little more difficult, but you're that lifeline. You may be the most important face they see that year in their life, or certainly that day, and you're going to see a lot of people at their lowest point. And knowing that, and trying to provide not only the very best medical services, but the very best response and trauma-informed response that you can is so important. I believe that we've got to make sure as we move forward, first of all, that we fill all these vacancies, especially in nursing around the Commonwealth. It is, that is our number one today healthcare challenge that we see. Then we look at certain specialties that we need overall in the medical field. We need more psychiatrists in Kentucky. We need more mental health counselors. In our budget, we have a pilot residency program in Eastern Kentucky for psychiatry, and it's needed in Western Kentucky too. But if we can prove this model and get it running, it's with both ARH and Pikeville Medical that came in and said, we don't want any territory here. We just want as many as we can. We constantly need to look at our policies that we have. Where are we preventing people from getting the health care they need? Where has training come? Where different individuals like those here can provide new and different services to our people. What are the changes we need in reimbursement in different areas maybe that haven't happened in so long? Dentistry under Medicaid is one. We've got to continue to expand health care. Listen, you asked about my dad. One of the most important things we have done in the past 20 years is the expansion of Medicaid. It saved all those rural hospitals. And as I was looking at our bed capacity during the pandemic, and we even had charts on where we would go next and what we would open and when our state parks would open and what we would do with that field hospital and where else we would go. And it's pretty scary to draw, you know, those types of concentric circle steps that we'd have to take. I could see the number of beds we would not have, especially in the rural areas, had Steve Beshear not expanded Medicaid. And then we look at some of the recent changes we've made, the expansion for new moms and those babies for the 12 months especially, and the services that can be provided, expanding to vision, dental, and hearing. And we always may think, well, a pair of glasses isn't that expensive. Oh, to some people, it's the difference between coming into the workforce and not. When we launched the free GED program, I thought it was a good program. But I was taught an important lesson on what a couple $100 can prevent people from doing that they would otherwise do. So I think it's really important to look at the return of some of those programs. I mean, vision, dental, and health doesn't cost us all that much money, and we get the federal match, the federal part on top of that, and then what it does. I mean, if we want somebody to get back in the workforce, they got to be able to see well enough to drive there. Get them a pair of glasses. You got to be able to hear well enough on the work site to be safe. Let's get somebody a hearing aid if they need it. Those are, and we lose more work hours due to emergency dental procedures that just by getting someone that regular coverage. I mean, all of it makes sense. And we get a bigger return as a state for doing than by not doing. But we will only make the right decisions on healthcare policy with your help, with you here today, and by looking at how many of you all came here today, I know you're doing your part. Let me just end by saying, any day I'm governor, you are welcome to this state capitol. I am so grateful for each and every one of your work.
Thank you, sir, for being here tonight. We appreciate your support.
Good luck this way, so I can say hi to the people. Okay, thank y'all. Thank you. All right.